Yeah, we're just putting the facts together, or what we can understand as what's going on. I'm clearly speaking in a personal
Hmm.
capacity as we understand this, but this is Prigozhin totally humiliated Putin, and that should never happen for a Russian leader. They need to look strong. They need to look infallible. It's all part of your image. If anybody gets in the way, dares to challenge you, you arrest them, you throw them in prison, or indeed you eliminate them. You don't allow them to charge up to Moscow with tanks and then to allow it all to go away, provide exile in Belarus. So this, I think, was, if we're correct in saying that he was removed in this way, was Putin trying to restore some form of credibility, his own legitimacy, if you like, as the key respected decision maker, not being challenged by anybody else. Any president of Russia needs to know that the loyalty of their own security apparatus is 100% behind them. And what Prigozhin was doing was saying, no, that isn't the case. And that was making Putin look as weak as he could ever have been in the 23 years in power.
Mm. One of our guests earlier, Maria Avdiva, who's a security expert in Ukraine, actually suggested, in addition to what you were saying there, Tobias, that this could lead to further instability inside Russian military command and among the Wagner mercenary group as well. Do you agree with that assessment?
Oh, I do indeed. I
Yeah.
mean, what we're seeing here is Putin trying to restore some form of credibility, trying to move forward. He's had a pretty bad week. He's had to sack another general in charge of Ukraine, General Sugovin. And then the previous one, General Zaidko, was not only sacked, he ended up dead as well. So there's a pattern of events as we see in Russia. There was an attempt, of course, in Salisbury to do with the Novichok poisoning too. This is how Russia operates when it wants to get rid of people that dare to challenge the system. What does Putin need to do now? His survival handbook will tell him to actually be incredibly tough, harsh on anybody that dares to raise questions about his legitimacy. But for the rest of those operating in Kremlin, they smell weakness and they will be asking themselves, is it now time that Putin, because the lid has been exposed on how badly Ukraine is going, that we actually start looking at for another leader? So very, very difficult for the West to recognize what's going on. We should prepare for a greater attacks on Ukraine, more effort by Putin to try and confirm he remains an unchallenged president of Russia.
In terms then of appropriate response to this, Tobias, I mean, the analysis really is that Yevgeny Prigozhin, had he been successful in his mutiny and taken over Russia, would not have been a particularly great or palatable leader of Russia either. And so I'm trying to understand, I suppose, where this leaves us on an international level, and certainly, of course, with the war in Ukraine at the forefront of our minds when answering that question.
Yes, it's a really good question to ask. People, pose the question, the point, if you got rid of Putin, would things
Mm.
then default back to a better relationship with Russia? I would argue that isn't the case. This
Mm.
is what Russia does. It expands, it advances, it attacks around its edges because that's the best way to defend a country that covers, I think it is 11 time zones. It's enormous and it's becoming closer to China as well. It's becoming less of a friend to the West. And we're seeing a splintering, if you like, of international rules-based order of countries, the BRICS particularly as well, moving one way, and the global South as well, against the West too. It's important. I'm pleased to see that we've got James Cleverly going to China to spell out some of the challenges that we face there, and we've got Kimi Badenoch going to India as well, an important ally that we have. But we should recognize that while we're focused on supporting Ukraine, absolutely right to do that, there are moving tectonic geopolitical plates taking place, which are seeing new alliances forming, new pressures taking place, and power shifting from the West to other parts of the globe.
Tobias Ellwood, Chair of the Defence Select Committee, thank you very much. Thanks for your analysis.